The Roman Empire, when wisdom almost outran the stupidity. Hey, my name's Ayushman. What's up, everyone? And welcome to My Corner, where we dissect history's most grand, most influential, and yes, most underrated smart civilizations. I'm your host, and today we're talking about the one thing that laid the foundation for the Western world, conquered it, and then expanded it again, showing how a few smart moves can actually get you very far, even if your leadership is slightly unhinged. Yes, I'm talking about the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire, the place where democracy was born and actually worked for a bit, where roads were built that are still standing today. Some are incredibly smooth, honestly. And where you could be both a visionary philosopher and a disciplined soldier at the same time. Before we dive into every brilliant twist of this Roman saga, take a quick second. I'm pretty sure liking the video, subscribing to the channel, and hitting that little bell icon will bring some Roman efficiency into your life. And who doesn't want that? Let's get into it. Congratulations, humanity! We figured out math. We tamed fire. We landed on the moon, and we built a civilization that focused so much on practical solutions that it ruled for thousands of years, even if its leaders were likely drunk half the time. Incredible! Chapter 1. The Republic's Genius. When the people said, "We're better than kings." Let's start our journey at the beginning of the Roman story, when they were a republic, not an empire. They hated kings so much, for a long time anyway, that they developed a system that was actually quite brilliant, on paper at least. The idea of the republic was that the people would elect their leaders and power wouldn't rest in the hands of one man. This was a revolutionary idea. All citizens, yes, citizen meant propertied men back then, but it was a progressive step for the time. They created institutions like the consuls, two rulers so no one became a dictator, an extremely clever safety measure. The Senate, older, experienced statesmen whose advice was taken seriously. And the assemblies, where people actually voted on laws. This was a strong balance of power. And guess what else they did? They created laws to solve their problems. Roman law was so advanced that it's still the foundation of our modern legal systems. Innocent until proven guilty was a Roman concept, a powerful sense of justice. They built a robust army that was skilled not just in fighting, but in engineering and organization. Every soldier was also an engineer who could build bridges and roads. This was a brilliant strategy that helped them expand their borders. The takedown. The Roman Republic was a bold and largely successful experiment in governance. They showed the world that you can give people structured freedom and they will use it to build a powerful and lasting society. Yes, that was the decision they made, and it was a magnificent achievement that laid the groundwork for centuries. Chapter 2. The Empire's Consolidation, when one man streamlined everything. And then came the time when Rome decided, okay, the Republic was cute, but now we need a little more efficiency. And that efficiency was brought by the Emperor. Augustus, the first emperor, showed us the real game. He created a system where one man was running the whole world, but he did it in a way that looked stable and efficient. He reformed the military, reorganized the provinces, and brought economic stability. This ushered in the Pax Romana. 200 years of relative peace and stability. The emperor's true legacy was their administrative capability. They created an amazing network of roads across the empire, facilitating trade, communication, and military movement. These roads were so good, some are still in use. They built aqueducts that brought fresh water to cities, drastically improving sanitation and public health. They equipped their cities with public baths, theaters, and markets. Public baths. These weren't just places to get clean. They were community centers where people socialized, conducted business, and debated politics. This was a social innovation that enriched Roman life. And the takedown? Rome built an empire based on efficient administration, incredible engineering, and a social integration. They proved that strong, centralized power, when used intelligently, can create a civilization that flourishes for ages. Amazing. Chapter 3. The Roman Lifestyle, the Mix of Practicality and Progress. The Romans knew how to live, but it wasn't just about feasting and excess. Their life was rooted in a deep practicality that advanced them in many fields. They had advanced agricultural techniques, which allowed them to feed a huge population. They used canals, irrigation systems, and experimented with new crops. This was a scientific approach crucial for their survival. Roman architecture wasn't just grand, it was highly functional. Their use of concrete. Yes, they basically invented concrete, allowed them to build structures that were incredibly durable. Their arches and domes helped support large, open spaces, enabling iconic buildings like the Colosseum and the Pantheon. These were not just beautiful, but engineering marvels. Education was important. Children from wealthy families were taught reading, writing, and logic. They studied Greek, the language of knowledge and philosophy. This pursuit of learning fueled their important contributions to philosophy, literature, and history. And guess what they did? They systemized public entertainment. Gladiator games and chariot races weren't just random violence. They were a controlled outlet for the public and a way to establish social cohesion. This was a smart way to get different classes of people together to share a common experience. And the takedown? The Romans proved that practicality, innovation, and a systemized lifestyle can make any civilization excel in multiple fields. They showed us how leveraging knowledge and engineering creates a world that is prosperous and functional. A true inspiration. Chapter 4. Stability and Adaptation. When a problem arose, they did something. When the empire became too vast, they split it into two halves, the Eastern and Western empires. This was a pragmatic decision to manage it better. It was an acknowledgement that one man couldn't control everything. When economic issues hit, they introduced currency reforms. Sometimes they worked, sometimes they didn't, but they tried. When military threats increased, they reorganized their army, strengthened fortifications, and developed new border defense strategies. Crucially, they practiced cultural inclusion. They granted citizenship to many of the people they conquered, making them feel like a part of the empire. This process of Romanization was key to keeping the empire united. They didn't just rule people, they absorbed them. And yes, the rise of Christianity. Initially, they resisted it, but ultimately they adopted it as the state religion. This was a massive pivot that gave the empire a new moral and spiritual foundation. This shows their capacity for flexibility and survival. And they probably enjoyed a good bath while figuring it out. Final thoughts. So here we are, thousands of years later, we are still learning from the Roman Empire's brilliant decisions, and maybe a little from their few idiotic ones. We've seen their grandeur, their engineering, their laws, and their adaptability. Did we learn anything? I hope so. We still use their legal systems, build their style of roads, and struggle with social integration. The Roman Empire shows us that power, wealth, and intelligence, when used correctly, can forge a civilization that shapes history. And it also teaches you that making the right decisions is not always easy, but it is always necessary. Thanks for joining me on this grand and practical journey. Share this with your visionary friends. Give them a chance to reflect on history's greatest success stories. I'm out. I might need to check my aqueduct, or maybe not. Maybe I'll just go design something functionally beautiful. Goodbye, or as the Romans would say, Ave.